How are you guys doing today? It is the True Game Nerd, and today we're going to take a look at Tekken 7. I know it has been quite the long time since you guys have seen me. Don't worry, I'm still here, just been very busy. But a little while ago I started a retrospective on the Tekken series, and now we're going to finish it. Coming up right now, Tekken 7. Tekken 7 was initially made a few years ago and came out in the arcades. And it did really well. The problem was the console versions were taking forever, so it got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. We even went through a stream for a while where we didn't even get a release date, essentially making everybody angry because we want our Tekken. However, it finally got released, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at it. There's a few weird things in there, but there's a lot more good than bad. So let's kick this off by talking about the graphics. Graphically, by far, this is probably the best looking Tekken, and it's not just because it's on the PS4. The textures and everything are absolutely wonderful. The backgrounds are phenomenal, and there's a couple graphical things that are different about this game. It's presented in almost more like a cinema-like style, meaning that when you hit each other at the same time, the screen will turn black and white for a second, like a martial arts movie, or if you do a high impact hold or move, or if you do a high impact kick, like I like to use with like Hurong or La, the screen will kind of zoom in and do these effects. These all add to the experience of the game. And what's even more interesting to me is graphically, the cinematics seem to blend in really well with the actual fighting mechanic, and that's really refreshing to see because most fighting games do a terrible job at that. With that, I can't really say I have many issues with the graphics. I mean, they are what they are. They look good. So let's go ahead and move on to sound design. The sound design in the game is also one of the best that we've had in a while. In the past, you guys have seen me complain a lot about the music in the other Tekken games. That I felt like since Tekken 2 and 3, the music has been subpar isn't the word, but not as good as it could have been. But that's not the case with this game. This game does it well. The music is heartfelt, it's got emotion, it reminds me of Tekken 2 with a modern twist. And that closing tune has got to be one of the best closing tunes I have heard out of the series. Period. There's a few setbacks. With the sound design, some of the English voice acting, like the newcomer Josie, because the new voice is actually rather annoying. What sucks because he's a really cool character, but if you have bad voice acting, it can just ruin that experience. Keep in mind, this is a very mild complaint. I'm not giving a huge angry complaint about this. The sound is actually some of the best we've had in the series for years. Now, when talking about the gameplay, that's where it gets a little interesting. You can still play the traditional arcade mode, and you have Treasure Battle. For those of you who don't know what Treasure Battle is, essentially you just fight random people, you rank up, and you get different clothing items for your customization, or you unlock different ways to customize your profile. Pure and simple. And periodically you might get a special match. Arcade, you just run straight through. But there's one huge difference to this Tekken game that sets it apart. It is the Mishima Bloodline storyline. And let me tell you something. It's both good and bad for me. Now, before you start booing me and throwing tomatoes at me, hear me out on this. So with the Mishima story, it basically follows Kazuya and Heihachi, and some people surrounding them. The story is presented in almost a cinematic kind of way, and you even get like a kind of a cinematic assistance for fighting. That's good and bad for me. The reason why that's good and bad, I like the fact that you get assistance, but I don't like it because it doesn't feel like Tekken when you do that. But aside from that, the cinematics are well done. Everything blends in seamlessly, and it's the clearest, most clean-cut, easy to understand story we've had in a Tekken game for a long time. Essentially, without trying to spoil too much, Kazuya and Heihachi are going at it again. As we know at the last game, Jin basically tried to bring up the end of the world to wake up that Azazel guy. And so that war is still going on with Kazuya and Heihachi. And then you also have Akuma in there, who's basically been ordered by Kazumi, Heihachi's wife, to kill everybody. Or at least kill Kazuya and Heihachi. I wasn't too clear on that, but somewhere along those lines. And the storyline is interesting. You get a little background on Heihachi. You also get a little background as to what Kazuya is and why Heihachi tried to kill him in the first place, or why he even threw him down the cliff. There's one pet peeve I had with it, and it was more just when you get to that special match with Akuma, he is so overpowered. It was about the most frustrating thing I've ever done. But once I beat him, I felt good. Along with this, you do get side stories that you unlock. And it's good and bad for me. I like that every character you can get a little story. My problem is the Mishima Bloodline story is the only one that seemed to get all the attention here. And that's where my issue is. So rather than having everyone play through arcade mode and unlock it like you did in the past, you now just do one fight and half the time you get a comical ending that has nothing to do with Tekken. Some endings are good, like Giga's ending was pretty interesting, Katrina's ending was interesting, but most of them, Josie is a really cool character, so her fighting Kuma, I don't really see that as an interesting story. I kind of want to know more about that character or how she'll interact. And you don't really get that when you're only fighting one match at a time with those side stories. What's good about it is they shortened it and you don't always have to fight Akuma. But again, it's good and bad. And before I forget to mention, Kazumi is also very, very, very cheap when you fight her as Heihachi. Just to warn y'all. Before I forget too, let's talk about some of the online parts of the gameplay as well. Hit and miss, but it's a new game, so I'm not too mad about it. But you do have some issues with lag and locking into other players and things just kind of slipping out. But I think they're going to fix this. The game came out, like 3 days ago? So I don't think that'll be a huge issue. I like the ranking system, and I know they're going to simplify that more. And you get a lot of double gen spammers. But again, these are all things they're going to fix. I had one minor complaint about online in general. It's more about the game. When you get the game and the game installs, essentially you have to wait for it to continue installing. So you actually can't play like half the game for the first 30 minutes you own it. I get it, but that actually confused and had me in a pretty sour mood for the first 30 minutes because I thought there was something up with the update. But these are just minor complaints. And finally, to close out, we had the overall presentation of the game. I don't have a lot of complaints about this. Things like the customization has been improved because in Tekken Tag I did complain how severely limited it was, most likely due to the character roster size. That's fixed here. It's much better than it was. And the only thing I'm not too fond of is that you have to unlock everything in Treasure Battle, but at the same time it gives you a reason to actually play the game, so it's whatever your preference is, not so much mine. You do have a jukebox mode, and you can select which Tekken you would like music from. I've always loved that because sometimes I want to hear the Tekken 2 music, though this is the first time in a while I've actually really liked the Tekken music. So, haven't had to do it as much, but it's a nice feature. You also get a gallery mode where you can watch all the cinematics you've unlocked in Tekken 7 and any of the cinematics from the old game. What I like that's different, you don't have to buy things like that this time. This time, you just use your fight money. Thank you, Namco. That's a lot more fair, so I appreciate that. That being said, there are a few setbacks to the design. When you do Treasure Battle mode, you don't get a lot of stage variety. Essentially, it changes with your rank, which I get. Maybe to give you quicker load times, but I don't know, I kind of miss the variety in that. Arcade mode is short. And so everything's kind of centered on the Mishima Bloodline thing. But at least this time, the gameplay in that is better, and they're not forcing you into this kind of weird beat-em-up game. It's almost like a combination of Tekken Force and regular Tekken, and I would rather deal with that. So, overall, not bad. In fact, it's pretty much what I was hoping it would be, and more. So overall, what do I think of Tekken 7? On the positive side of Tekken 7, you have a great character roster and really interesting characters. The Mishima Bloodlight storyline is well written and interesting. The music is finally back where it should be in the Tekken series. And you do have a lot of replay value. On the negative side, some of the bosses are really overpowered, and it can hurt the experience. And that's pretty much it. So Tekken 7, probably one of the best Tekken series they put out in a long time. I'm very glad I picked up the pre-order. I'm going to give this one, I think I might give it a 9.5 out of 10.